Captain Jake Morrison stretched his legs under the command console of the HSS Discovery and yawned. 3 months of deep space patrol duty had turned into the most boring assignment of his 20-year career. The ship drifted silently through the outer rim of human territory, its sensors scanning empty space for anything worth reporting to Earth Command. "Another exciting day in paradise," muttered navigator Lisa Brooks from her station. She was updating star charts that nobody would probably ever use. The outer rim was mostly empty space with a few dead rocks floating around. No colonies, no trade routes, just endless darkness between the stars. Engineer Tony Garcia looked up from his maintenance tablet. "At least the coffee machine is working today. Yesterday I had to drink that synthetic stuff that tastes like motor oil." He grinned at his crewmates. Tony could fix anything on the ship, but he complained constantly about the quality of their food supplies. Communications officer Amy Clark sat quietly at her station, monitoring the background radiation of space. She wore headphones and occasionally adjusted frequencies on her equipment. Most of the time she picked up nothing but static and cosmic noise. The outer rim was so far from civilization that even commercial broadcasts from Earth took weeks to reach them. Jake stood up and walked to the main view screen. Stars dotted the blackness ahead of them, looking exactly the same as they had for weeks. "Lisa, how much longer until we reach the next checkpoint?" "About 6 hours, Captain," she replied without looking up from her charts. "Then we turn around and head back the way we came. Same route we've been flying for 3 months. The Discovery was a research vessel, not a warship. It carried scientific equipment, communication arrays, and basic sensors. The human defense fleet used ships like this to monitor the edges of human space and watch for asteroids that might threaten shipping lanes. Real military vessels were rare these days. Humanity had been at peace for 300 years. Jake remembered his grandfather's stories about the old wars between human colonies. Ships with massive guns, boarding parties, desperate battles in the darkness of space. Those days seemed like ancient history now. The current defense fleet consisted mainly of patrol boats and research ships. Most people thought war was something that only existed in museums. "Captain?" Amy called out suddenly. "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range scanners." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" Amy pulled off her headphones and frowned at her displays. "It's a signal, but it's not coming from any known human source. The frequency is way outside normal communication bands, and it's very weak, almost like someone is transmitting from thousands of light years away." Tony dropped his tablet and joined them at the communication station. "Could be equipment malfunction. These old sensors pick up all sorts of weird readings out here." "I don't think so," Amy said, adjusting her controls. "The signal has structure. It's not random noise. There's definitely intelligence behind it." She worked quickly, trying to boost the signal strength and filter out background static. Lisa left her navigation console and crowded around with the others. The crew of the Discovery had grown close during their long patrol. They trusted each other's judgment, and Amy was the best communications officer in the fleet. "There," Amy said triumphantly. "I've got it cleaned up enough to understand part of it." A crackling voice came through the speakers, speaking in a language none of them recognized. The words sounded desperate and urgent, but the meaning was completely alien. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. In 3 centuries of space exploration, humanity had never encountered another intelligent species. Amy continued working on the signal. "The transmission is using multiple frequencies and seems to include data packets along with the voice. Let me run it through the computer's translation matrix." "Translation matrix?" Jake asked. "We don't have any alien languages in our database." "No, but the computer can analyze speech patterns and try to guess at meaning based on tone and repetition," Amy explained. "It's not perfect, but it might give us something to work with." The computer worked for several minutes, processing the alien transmission. Finally, text began appearing on Amy's screen. The translation was rough and filled with gaps, but the basic message was clear enough to make everyone's blood run cold. SOS. Massive fleet. Destroying everything. They consume. No mercy. Warn others. Headed toward. Coordinates follow. Billions dead. The crew stood in stunned silence. Jake felt his mouth go dry. "Amy, are you sure about this translation?" "As sure as I can be, Captain. The emotional content is definitely distress. Whoever sent this message was terrified." Amy's hands shook slightly as she continued working on the signal. "There's more data here. Technical specifications, star charts, tactical information. Tony grabbed the nearest chair. This can't be real. There's no other intelligent life in this part of the galaxy. Our surveys would have found them. Our surveys covered human space and maybe 100 light-years beyond, Lisa pointed out. This signal could be coming from much farther away. The universe is a big place. Amy managed to decode more of the data packets. Images appeared on her screen showing massive ships unlike anything humanity had ever built. They looked organic, like they had been grown rather than constructed. The vessels were enormous, some of them larger than Earth's biggest space stations. Look at these tactical readings, Amy said, highlighting sections of the decoded information. These ships are moving in formation toward a specific region of space. The aliens who sent this message are trying to warn someone about an invasion fleet. Jake studied the star charts included in the transmission. Can you figure out where this fleet is headed? Lisa took over the navigation calculations, comparing the alien star charts with human maps. Her face grew pale as she worked. Captain, if these coordinates are accurate, that invasion fleet is moving directly toward human space. How long do we have? Jake asked quietly. Based on the speed indicators in this data, maybe 6 months before they reach our outer colonies, possibly less. Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper. The crew looked at each other in growing panic. Jake forced himself to stay calm. As captain, his job was to make decisions even when the situation seemed impossible. Amy, can you boost our long-range transmitters enough to reach Earth Command? It'll take everything we've got, but yes. The message will take weeks to get there, though. Do it. Send everything we've intercepted, along with our current position and analysis. Tony, I want every sensor we have pointed in the direction that fleet is coming from. If there's really an invasion force out there, we need to confirm it. As his crew rushed to follow orders, Jake stared at the alien images on Amy's screen. The peaceful universe humanity had known for centuries was about to change forever. Somewhere in the darkness, an enemy beyond imagination was heading straight for Earth. Admiral Helen Carter stared at the holographic display showing the alien transmission data that had arrived from the HSS Discovery 3 weeks ago. The emergency session of the Human Colonial Council had been debating for 6 hours, and most members still refused to believe the threat was real. Admiral, you're asking us to mobilize the entire human fleet, based on a garbled message from unknown aliens, said Council Chairman Peter Walsh. This could be an elaborate hoax or a misunderstanding of natural phenomena. Helen clenched her jaw. As head of Earth Defense Command, she had spent her career preparing for threats that never came. The human defense fleet was small, outdated, and designed more for rescue operations than actual combat. Most of their ships were converted civilian vessels with basic weapons. Council members, please review the technical data again, Helen said patiently. Our scientists have confirmed that this transmission came from outside known space. The energy signatures match nothing in our databases. Either someone has developed technology far beyond our capabilities to fool us, or we're facing a real alien invasion. Dr. Nathan Price stood up from his seat in the gallery. The military historian had been studying human warfare for 30 years, specializing in the conflicts that had ended 3 centuries ago. His gray hair and serious expression commanded respect even from skeptical politicians. May I address the council, Admiral? He asked. Helen nodded gratefully. She had requested Nathan's presence specifically for this moment. Nathan walked to the center of the chamber. Council members, I've spent my life studying how humans fight wars. What you need to understand is that humanity has never faced extinction without responding with incredible ferocity. Our ancestors survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that destroyed entire civilizations. We're still here because when threatened, humans become the most dangerous species on Earth. Dr. Price, we appreciate the history lesson, but this isn't ancient Earth, interrupted Councilwoman Maria Santos. We're a peaceful civilization now. War is a relic of the past. Respectfully, Councilwoman, peace is a luxury we enjoy only when we're not threatened, Nathan replied. The moment our survival is at stake, those old instincts will resurface. The question is whether we prepare now or wait until it's too late. Helen activated another hologram showing the current state of human military forces. The display was embarrassingly small compared to the massive alien fleet described in the Discovery's transmission. Our total combat capability consists of 200 patrol vessels, 50 escort ships, and 12 heavy cruisers, Helen explained. According to the alien data, we're facing millions of enemy ships. Traditional military thinking says we have no chance. The council chamber fell silent. Even the skeptics could do basic math. Captain Ben Hughes entered the room and walked quietly to Helen's side. He was one of the few humans alive who had actual combat experience, having served in the last border skirmishes 40 years ago. However, Helen continued, Captain Hughes has brought to my attention a classified protocol developed during the Unification Wars. Ben, would you explain? Ben stepped forward, his weathered face serious. 300 years ago, when the human colonies were still fighting each other, military planners developed something called the Sleeping Giant Protocol. They were terrified that Earth might face a threat too big for conventional forces to handle. He activated a new display showing hidden installations throughout human space. They built automated shipyards in asteroid belts, weapon caches on uninhabited planets, and research facilities in deep space. All of them designed to activate only in case of species-level extinction threat. Councilman Robert Kim leaned forward. You're saying we have secret military installations that nobody knows about? Not nobody, Ben replied. The locations were passed down through military families and kept in classified archives. The idea was that if humanity ever faced annihilation, these facilities would give us the tools to fight back. Dr. Price nodded approvingly. It's exactly the kind of long-term planning humans excel at. We prepare for disasters we hope will never come. Helen brought up another display showing industrial capacity throughout human space. If we activate the protocol, every civilian factory, mining operation, and construction facility will be converted to military production. Our economists estimate we could increase our military capacity by 10,000% within 6 months. The council members looked at each other uncertainly. The scale of what Helen was proposing seemed impossible. The aliens who sent the warning call themselves the Keepers, Helen continued. According to their data, they had centuries to prepare for this invasion and still lost. We have months, but humans have always done more with less time than anyone thought possible. Councilwoman Santos spoke up again. What about our civilian population? You're talking about turning our entire civilization into a war machine. Ma'am, if we don't fight, there won't be any civilians left to worry about, Ben said bluntly. The alien transmission was clear. These invaders don't take prisoners or negotiate. They consume everything in their path, Nathan added. Throughout history, humans have shown a remarkable ability to unite when faced with external threats. Internal conflicts disappear when survival is at stake. Our people will mobilize because that's what humans do. Helen looked around the chamber at the worried faces of the council members. We have confirmation from 3 more scout ships that massive energy signatures are moving toward our space. Long-range sensors detect gravitational distortions consistent with large fleets. Whether we like it or not, this threat is real. Chairman Walsh called for a brief recess. The council members gathered in small groups, arguing in hushed voices. Helen could see fear replacing skepticism on their faces as the reality of the situation sank in. When the session resumed, Walsh looked older than he had that morning. Admiral Carter, if we authorize activation of this sleeping giant protocol, what exactly happens? Within 24 hours, automated signals will activate hidden facilities across human space, Helen replied. Construction will begin immediately on new ship designs. Civilian industries will receive conversion orders. Every human colony will start producing weapons, armor, and military equipment. And if we're wrong about this threat? Asked Santos. Ben answered grimly. Then we'll have the most powerful military force in human history and nothing to use it on. But if we're right and do nothing, humanity ceases to exist. The vote was closer than Helen had hoped, but the protocol activation passed by a narrow margin. As the council members filed out, she felt the weight of what they had just set in motion. Humanity was about to remember how to wage war on a scale their ancestors could never have imagined. Within hours, signals raced across human space to installations that had waited 3 centuries for this moment. The sleeping giants were beginning to stir. Commander Roy Blake watched in amazement as the hidden shipyard emerged from the asteroid belt around Titan. Massive robotic arms unfolded from what had appeared to be ordinary space rocks, while automated construction platforms activated after 3 centuries of dormancy. The sleeping giant protocol had been active for only 2 months, but the transformation was beyond anything he had imagined. Sir, the main assembly line is requesting the new ship designs, reported Lieutenant Carl Murphy from his engineering station. Carl had been a civilian spacecraft designer just weeks ago, before being drafted into the military expansion program. Roy pulled up the holographic blueprints he had been working on for the past month. Unlike the elegant curves of civilian vessels, these new warships looked brutal and purposeful. Upload the Defender-class specifications first. We need those fast attack ships ready as soon as possible. The automated systems began constructing the first batch of military vessels designed specifically to fight the alien invasion. Roy had studied every piece of data recovered from the Keeper transmission, learning how the enemy ships moved and fought. Human warships would be different from anything the aliens had encountered before. On Mars, Lieutenant Colonel Kate Williams stood before a formation of 10,000 new recruits in the largest military training facility humanity had ever built. The complex had been constructed in 6 weeks using round-the-clock automated labor. Men and women from every human colony stood in perfect rows, wearing fresh military uniforms and determined expressions. 3 months ago, most of you were farmers, engineers, teachers, and shopkeepers, Kate announced, her voice carrying across the vast parade ground. Today you begin training to become the finest fighting force in the galaxy. The enemy expects to find helpless civilians. Instead, they will face warriors. The recruits came from all walks of life, but they shared a common purpose. News of the alien threat had spread throughout human space, and volunteers were arriving faster than the military could process them. Entire families were enlisting together. Retirement-age veterans were demanding to return to service. Humanity was mobilizing with an intensity that surprised even military planners. Kate activated the holographic training systems that filled the air around the recruits. You will learn to fight in zero gravity, in planetary atmospheres, and in the vacuum of space. You will master weapons that didn't exist a year ago. Most importantly, you will learn to think like humans at war. The training programs drew from 3 centuries of preserved military knowledge. Ancient tactics were updated for modern warfare, while new strategies were developed specifically for fighting the alien invasion. Human military academies had kept the old knowledge alive, waiting for the day it might be needed again. Deep in the asteroid mining stations of the belt, millions of workers had converted their operations to extract materials for the war effort. Rare metals needed for advanced weapons flowed toward Earth in the outer colonies. Mining ships that once searched for ice and precious metals now hunted for uranium and exotic particles. Tony Garcia, the engineer from the HSS Discovery, found himself in charge of a massive production facility on Europa. The moon's surface was covered with factories that produced everything from personal weapons to starship armor. Tony had never imagined he would oversee the work of 50,000 people. The new composite armor is testing at 3 times the strength of anything we had before, reported his assistant, Engineer Julie Foster. She had been transferred from a civilian research station and was adapting quickly to military requirements. Tony studied the test results on his tablet. Good, but the enemy ships are biological. Their weapons might work differently than anything we understand. Make the armor even stronger. The production facilities were working at maximum capacity, turning out equipment for the growing human fleet. Every day brought new innovations as human scientists and engineers applied their creativity to the art of warfare. Weapons that existed only in theory were becoming reality within weeks. In the outer colonies, Captain Steve Martinez was training with the first squadron of new fighter pilots. His small ships were fast and maneuverable, designed to exploit weaknesses in the large alien vessels. The pilots had been selected from the best civilian spacecraft operators and were learning to fly combat missions. Remember, the enemy ships are huge, but they move in predictable patterns. Steve explained to his pilots during a briefing. We hit them fast, cause damage, and get out before they can respond. Speed and surprise are our advantages. The fighter squadrons represented a completely new approach to space combat. Previous human conflicts had involved large ships fighting at long range. The new tactics emphasized swarms of small vessels working together to overwhelm much larger opponents. Meanwhile, scientists were making contact with the Keepers, the alien race that had sent the original warning message. Dr. Rachel Morris led the communication team that established regular contact with the survivors of the alien civilization. Elder Keeper Zethka appeared as a hologram in the communication chamber on Earth. The alien looked somewhat like a tall, human but with silver skin and large dark eyes. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of profound sadness and growing amazement. Your species transforms itself with incredible speed, Zethka said. his translated words displaying wonder. "We required 1,000 years to build our civilization, and 500 more to prepare for war. You accomplish in months what took us centuries." Rachel leaned forward in her chair. "We're running out of time. Can you tell us more about how the swarm fights?" "They adapt their ships to counter whatever weapons they face," the alien explained. "Each encounter makes them stronger. But your approach is unlike anything they have seen. You do not fight the way other civilizations fight." The Keeper shared tactical data from his people's final battles. The information was invaluable for human military planners, who used it to design weapons and strategies the swarm had never encountered. Back at the Titan shipyard, Commander Roy Blake watched the first completed human warship leave the construction dock. The HSS Retribution was 10 times larger than any previous human vessel, bristling with weapon systems that could destroy entire enemy squadrons. It was the first of hundreds that would soon join the growing fleet. "Sir, we're receiving reports from shipyards throughout human space," Lieutenant Murphy announced. "Production is ahead of schedule on all fronts. The fleet will be ready for combat in 4 months." Roy nodded with satisfaction. Humanity was remembering how to wage war, and the enemy would soon learn what that meant. The sleeping giants were fully awake, and they were very, very angry. Admiral Frank Collins stood on the bridge of the HSS Defender, watching the enemy fleet approach Proxima Station through the main view screen. The swarm invasion force was exactly as the Keepers had described. Millions of organic-looking ships moving in perfect formation through the darkness of space. Each vessel appeared to be alive, pulsing with biomechanical energy that made his skin crawl. "Admiral, enemy fleet will reach firing range in 30 minutes, reported Captain Lisa Martinez from the tactical station. She had been promoted from navigator to combat officer when the new military structure was established. Her hands moved quickly over the weapons control panels. Frank nodded calmly, though his heart was racing. The human defense fleet consisted of only 5,000 ships, outnumbered by the enemy at least 50 to 1. Traditional military thinking said they had no chance of victory, but human military thinking had changed dramatically in the past 6 months. "All ships, this is Admiral Collins," he broadcast to the fleet. "Remember your training. The enemy expects us to fight like every other species they've conquered. They expect us to panic when we see their numbers. Show them what happens when humans get angry." The swarm ships were enormous, some of them larger than human space stations. Their biomechanical hulls rippled with strange patterns of light, and weapon ports opened like hungry mouths along their sides. The alien vessels had conquered dozens of civilizations using the same tactics. Overwhelming numbers and ships that adapted to counter enemy weapons. Colonel Danny Reed led the first squadron of human fighters toward the enemy fleet. His small ships looked like insects compared to the massive swarm vessels, but they moved with deadly precision. Danny had been a racing pilot before the war, and he understood speed better than anyone in the fleet. "Hornet Squadron, remember the plan," Danny transmitted to his pilots. "We're not trying to destroy those big ships. We're here to confuse them and give the engineers time to deploy their surprises." The fighter squadron streaked toward the enemy formation at maximum acceleration. The swarm ships ignored them at first, focused on the larger human vessels that posed an obvious threat. This was exactly what Danny had hoped for. Engineer Rick Torres worked frantically in the cargo bay of his transport ship, preparing the secret weapon that human scientists had developed specifically for this battle. The nanobots looked harmless in their metal containers, but they represented humanity's most advanced technology, combined with knowledge gained from studying Keeper data about swarm biology. "Nanobots are ready for deployment," Rick reported to the command ship. "Once they're released, they'll infiltrate the enemy ships through their biomechanical systems. The swarm won't know what hit them until it's too late." The human fleet opened fire as the enemy entered weapons range. Kinetic cannons, energy beams, and particle weapons struck the leading swarm ships. The alien vessels absorbed the damage and began adapting their hulls to resist human weapons, just as the Keepers had warned they would do. But the human commanders had prepared for this. Every human ship carried multiple weapon systems with completely different operating principles. As soon as the swarm ships adapted to kinetic weapons, the humans switched to energy beams. When the aliens countered the energy weapons, the humans deployed exotic particle cannons that worked on quantum principles the swarm had never encountered. "Their adaptation systems are overloading," observed Captain Martinez with satisfaction. "They can't keep up with our weapon changes." The swarm fleet responded by launching boarding pods toward the human ships, another standard tactic that had worked against other species. The biomechanical pods contained warrior creatures designed to capture enemy vessels from the inside. But human ships had been prepared for this kind of attack. Lieutenant Colonel Kate Williams commanded the Marine units aboard the human fleet. Her soldiers wore powered armor and carried weapons specifically designed to fight biological enemies. When the swarm boarding pods attached to human ships, they found Marines waiting for them with flamethrowers and acid weapons. "Let them come," Kate transmitted to her units as the first alien warriors broke through the hull of her ship. "Show these monsters what human soldiers can do in close combat." The battle inside the ships was brutal and short. Swarm warriors were strong and vicious, but human Marines fought with a ferocity that shocked the aliens. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters, and that ancient instinct served them well against creatures that relied on overwhelming force, rather than tactical thinking. Meanwhile, Danny Reed's fighter squadron had reached the enemy fleet and was deploying Rick Torres's nanobots throughout the swarm formation. The microscopic machines spread through the biomechanical systems of the alien ships, causing critical failures in their adaptation mechanisms. "Nanobots are active," Rick reported with excitement. "Enemy ships are losing their ability to counter our weapons. Their biological systems are shutting down." The tide of battle began to turn as the swarm ships found themselves unable to adapt to human tactics. Their massive size became a disadvantage as human fighters swarmed around them like angry bees, striking at vulnerable points and retreating before the aliens could respond. Admiral Janet Stone arrived with the main human battle fleet just as the enemy formation began to falter. Her flagship, the HSS Retribution, was the largest warship humanity had ever built. Its main guns could destroy an entire city, and they were aimed directly at the swarm command ship. "All ships concentrate fire on their flagship," Janet ordered. "Time to show them what human engineering can accomplish when we put our minds to it." The Retribution's main cannon charged with enough energy to power a small planet. When it fired, the beam struck the swarm command ship with the force of a nuclear explosion. The massive alien vessel, which had seemed invulnerable just minutes before, broke apart in a brilliant flash of light. The destruction of their command ship sent panic through the swarm fleet. The biomechanical vessels that had conquered countless civilizations suddenly found themselves facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. Human ships continued to change tactics faster than the aliens could adapt, while nanobots crippled their biological systems from within. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation," reported Captain Martinez. "They're trying to retreat," Frank smiled grimly. "All ships pursue and destroy. Don't let a single one of them escape to report back to their home fleet." The Battle of Proxima Station lasted only 6 hours, but it changed the course of galactic history. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, the swarm had been completely defeated. Not a single human ship was lost, while the entire enemy invasion force was destroyed or captured. As the last swarm vessel exploded in the distance, Frank looked out at his victorious fleet. Humanity had awakened from 3 centuries of peace and proven that when pushed to the edge of extinction, humans became the most dangerous predators in the universe. Captain Sam Johnson guided his diplomatic ship through the debris field that had once been the swarm invasion fleet. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Proxima Station, and news of humanity's victory was spreading across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. His mission was to make contact with alien civilizations that had been hiding from the swarm for centuries. "Captain, we're receiving multiple communication signals from different species," reported communications. "Officer David Clark, it seems like everyone in this sector wants to talk to us now." Sam smiled as he reviewed the incoming messages. The galaxy had changed overnight. Species that had lived in terror of the swarm were suddenly reaching out to the humans who had accomplished the impossible. Word was spreading that Earth's children had defeated the unstoppable enemy in a single battle. The first aliens to make contact were survivors from a species called the Nalari. Their representative, Ambassador Kethvor, appeared on the main screen as a tall, thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms. When he spoke, his voice carried wonder and disbelief. "Captain Johnson, my people have hidden in deep space for 300 years to avoid the swarm. We watched them destroy civilization after civilization. How did humans defeat them so easily?" "We didn't think it was easy," Sam replied honestly. "We prepared for 6 months and put everything we had into that battle. But humans have a different approach to warfare than other species. We adapt quickly and we never give up. Ambassador Kethvor shared data about his people's encounters with the swarm. The Nalari had superior technology in many areas, but they had been crushed because they fought the same way every time. The swarm had adapted to their tactics and overwhelmed them with superior numbers. Major Linda Foster was busy establishing the first joint training facility on a neutral planet between human and alien space. Representatives from 12 different species had arrived to learn human military doctrine. The aliens were amazed by humanity's approach to warfare and wanted to understand how such a young civilization had become so effective at fighting. The key is flexibility, Linda explained to a group of alien military officers. Most species develop one way of fighting and stick with it. Humans change tactics constantly during battle. We use whatever works and abandon whatever doesn't. A keeper military advisor named Zethma nodded approvingly. Your people fought the swarm differently in every engagement during the battle. Our computer models could not predict human behavior because you do not follow logical patterns. Logic is predictable, Linda replied. Predictable tactics get you killed. Human soldiers are trained to think creatively and make decisions based on the situation in front of them. We don't follow rigid battle plans. The alien officers took detailed notes as Linda demonstrated human combat training methods. They were particularly interested in how human soldiers learned to work together as small teams, while maintaining individual initiative. Most alien militaries used either rigid hierarchies or complete chaos, but humans had found a balance between structure and flexibility. Dr. Rachel Morris led the scientific exchange program that was revolutionizing galactic technology. Human scientists were sharing their research with alien civilizations while learning about technologies that had been developed over thousands of years. The combination was producing innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. The Vortani have mastered energy shielding technology that's far superior to anything we've developed, Rachel explained to a group of human researchers. But they never thought to combine it with our modular ship designs. Together, we can build vessels that are both adaptable and nearly indestructible. The scientific cooperation was producing results faster than anyone had anticipated. Human creativity combined with alien knowledge was advancing technology at an incredible pace. New weapons, defensive systems, and spacecraft designs were being developed every week. Meanwhile, the swarm had retreated to their home territory for the first time in galactic history. Intelligence reports indicated that they were regrouping and adapting to human tactics. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted dramatically. Fleet Admiral Chris Taylor stood before the newly formed Galactic Council in a massive space station that had been constructed specifically for diplomatic meetings. Representatives from 43 different species filled the chamber, all of them looking to humanity for leadership in the continuing war against the swarm. Fellow beings, Chris began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had helped plan humanity's greatest military victory. 6 months ago, most of you had never heard of humans. Today we stand together as allies against an enemy that threatened all life in this galaxy. The assembled aliens listened intently as Chris outlined the formation of the Terran Defense Alliance. The organization would coordinate military efforts, share technology, and provide mutual defense for all member species. Humanity would provide military leadership and training, while alien civilizations contributed their unique technologies and knowledge. Elder Keeper Zeth Ka spoke from the gallery. The humans have accomplished what we thought impossible. They have stopped the swarm's expansion and given hope to species that had lost all faith in survival. We pledge our support to this alliance. One by one, the other species added their voices to the pledge. The Nalari offered their advanced sensor technology. The Vortani provided their energy shield systems. The Korath contributed their expertise in biological warfare. Dozens of other civilizations brought their own unique contributions to the alliance. Chris felt the weight of responsibility as he accepted leadership of the largest military alliance in galactic history. Humanity had gone from an unknown peaceful species to the dominant military power in less than a year. The transformation was almost impossible to believe. The swarm still exists in distant regions of space, Chris warned the council. They will adapt to our tactics and return with new strategies. But they will find a galaxy that is no longer afraid of them. They will find species working together instead of hiding alone. Most importantly, they will find humans who are very angry about what they tried to do to our friends. The council session ended with the signing of the Terran Defense Alliance Charter. As representatives from dozens of worlds committed their civilizations to the fight against the swarm, Chris realized that humanity had found its purpose in the galaxy. They were no longer just another peaceful species trying to survive. They had become the guardians of galactic civilization. The sleeping war giants of humanity had fully awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. Peace-loving humans had proven that when threatened with extinction, they became the most formidable warriors the universe had ever seen. The swarm had made one critical mistake. They had given humanity a reason to fight, and humans never forgot their enemies.